On the alien world of Syrinx-9, the sky was always purple. Strange birds with glassy wings flew over tall silver towers. Cars floated in the air and robots cleaned the streets. It was a peaceful planet, full of light and life, but inside a quiet home on the edge of the city, there lived a girl named Syria. She sat by the window every day, watching others walk, run, and fly. Her deep green eyes followed them with longing. Syria had not walked in over 10 years. She was born with a condition no alien doctor could fix. Her legs were weak, almost useless. Her parents tried everything, healers, machines, even ancient medicine, but nothing worked, so they gave her a hover chair. It floated a few inches above the ground and carried her everywhere. But it wasn't the same. It was never the same. Syria didn't smile much. She used to love drawing and telling stories, but now she mostly stayed quiet, watching the world. Move without her one day, a strange ship landed near the market square. It was not smooth like the alien ships. It was rough, bulky, and made of metal plates. It was a human ship. The people of Syrinx-9 didn't see many humans. Most aliens thought. Humans were strange loud, emotional, and always trying to fix things. But this human was different. He had short black hair, a worn brown jacket, and a small toolkit on his back. His name was Callan. He was an engineer from Earth. Callan didn't come to sell things or study alien culture. He came to help. I build things, he told the council. Especially things that help people move. Most of the council ignored him. Aliens don't need your help, they said. But one person listened, Syria's father. He invited Callan to their home. Syria watched from her chair as the human walked in. He smiled at her and said nothing at first. Then he sat down on the floor. Right in front of her, you're Syria, he said after a long pause. I've heard about you. Syria said nothing. She had met many people before. Doctors, scientists, even a machine priest, but none could help. She didn't want to get her hopes up again, but Callan didn't make promises. He just asked questions. What do you feel in your legs? Can you move your toes? What would you do if you could walk? That last question made her pause. She looked out the window again. I'd run through the sky gardens, she whispered. I'd race the birds. Callan smiled. Then let's try, he said. He stayed on Syrinx-9, setting up a small workshop. In the city's old tech zone, every day, he worked with metal, wires, and old robot parts. Syria visited him often, at first just to watch. Then slowly, she began to talk. Callan told her stories of Earthove, people who lost arms and legs but walked again using machines. He showed her pictures of humans running with robotic limbs. He said humans were not the smartest. Not the fastest, but they never gave up. We fix things, he said, especially broken dreams. Syria didn't know if she believed him, but she wanted to. So, she asked him one day, Are you building legs for me? Callan nodded. They'll be heavy at first, he said, but strong enough to hold your dreams. He showed her a strange device. Metal legs with glowing lines, soft padding, and tiny motors. They'll attach to your nerves, he explained. They'll move when you want to move. Syria stared at them. They looked scary, powerful, and almost alive. She reached out slowly and touched the metal. It was cold, but something inside her felt warm that night. She didn't sleep much. She kept thinking about the legs. What if they worked? What if she could stand? What if she could walk? But deep inside, she was also afraid of hope, afraid of failure, afraid of falling. Still, she returned the next day, and the day after that, every day, the legs became more real. Every day her fear turned a little more into courage. And one quiet morning, Callan looked at her and said, Are you ready to try standing? Syria looked at the legs, then at her own. She took a deep breath and nodded. Asterisk, the sun was still rising when Syria stood for the first time. Her robotic legs hissed with energy. Callan held her hand, steadying her as she shook. Her whole body trembled, not just from the weight, but from something bigger. Hope, fear, the feeling of life changing. She stood for only 10 seconds. Then the power cut out, and she fell back into her hover chair, hard. But she didn't cry. She laughed. I stood. She whispered, eyes wide. I really stood. Callan grinned. Sitting on the floor beside her, you did better than I expected, he said. But we still have a long way to go. Later that day, her parents called her back home. They had been watching from the shadows. They were proud but afraid. Is this safe? Her mother asked. He's just a human, said her father. We don't even know if this tech is legal. Syria stayed quiet. She didn't care about laws right now. She had felt the ground beneath her feet. Even for a few seconds it had been real. She would never forget that feeling. The next morning, Callan didn't work on the legs. Instead, he cleaned the workshop, organized tools, and waited when Syria arrived. Was sipping a hot cup of human coffee. Today, he said. We make a deal. She tilted her head, confused. A deal? Yes, Callan said, standing up. Give me 1 week, he said. 1 week to get the legs working properly, no pressure, no rush. But if they work by the end of that week, you try to walk? Syria smiled. You think I wouldn't? Callan raised one eyebrow. I think you're brave, he said, but this path is hard. These legs, they're not just metal. They're choice, pain, training, and trust. Syria looked at the half-finished legs sitting on the table, then back at Callan. Okay, she said. I accept the deal. The next 7 days were full of sparks, wires, and late nights. Callan slept less, worked more. Syria stayed longer each day. She watched him take apart the legs, upgrade the joints, adjust the sensors. Sometimes he asked her to try parts, test the pressure, the weight, the balance. He recorded everything, and slowly the legs began to respond better, faster, smoother, smarter. One evening, while testing the knee joints, Syria said, Why do you care so much? Callan looked up, surprised. What do you mean? You're human, she said. You don't even know me. You could have left. He thought for a moment, then answered. Back on Earth, he said. I had a sister. She was in a wheelchair too. I couldn't help her then, but I can help you now. Syria didn't speak for a while. Then she quietly said, I wish I had a brother like you. Callan smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. You do now, he said. But not everyone was happy about the project. That same night, a strange drone flew past the workshop. It hovered near the windows, scanned the tools, and left the next morning. 2 government officers arrived at Syria's house. They wore black armor and had cold, flat eyes. Your daughter is working with a human engineer, one of them said. This project is not approved. Her parents tried to argue, but the officers left a warning. Stop now or face punishment. Syria heard it all. She didn't cry. She didn't run. She rolled into her room and stared out the window. That night, she visited the workshop again. Callan was fixing a circuit board when she walked in. They came to my house, she said. They told my family to stop. Callan looked up, frowning. Do you want to stop? He asked. Syria stepped closer. No, she said. I want to walk. I want to run. And I don't care what they say. Callan nodded slowly. Then let's finish the legs, he said. But we'll need to move fast. The part ends with Callan switching off the lights. He and Syria begin packing tools and parts. They're going to finish the project, but now they must hide because someone is watching and someone wants them to fail. The rain fell gently over the glowing rooftops of Syrex 9. Neon lights danced across puddles as the city went to sleep, but deep under the streets, in an old storage room, something important was about to happen. Syria stood in the center of the workshop. The robotic legs were fully attached now. The metal hugged her thighs and calves, wires connected to her nerves. Tiny lights blinked on the knees and ankles. They were not just machines anymore. They were a part of her. Callan stood close, holding a small controller ready. He asked, his voice calm but tight. Syria took a breath. Her chest rose and fell. She nodded. Callan pressed the button. A quiet hum filled the room. The legs came alive. First they shook, adjusting. Then they locked into balance. Syria's body began to lift. Her hover chair pulled back automatically. She was no longer sitting. She was standing. She gasped. The floor felt strange under her feet. Firm, real, heavy. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't blink them away. "I'm up," she whispered. Callan smiled. "You're up," he said. "Now walk." The first step was the hardest. Her right foot moved forward, just a little, then stopped. The left leg followed, slowly, carefully. Her arms flailed slightly. But she stayed up. One step, then another, and another. She was walking not fast. Not smooth, but real. Every movement was a miracle. She turned in a circle. Wobbling like a baby bird learning to fly, but she was flying. In her own way then, suddenly snap. One of the joints made a loud sound. The legs froze. Syria lost balance and fell forward. Callan rushed in and caught her before she hit the ground. The lights on the legs flickered. "System overload," Callan muttered. "Too much pressure on the knee motors." Syria sat back down, breathing hard. Her face was red, her hair damp with sweat, but she laughed. "That was amazing," she said. "I took 6 steps. Callan didn't smile. He looked at the legs. Worried. "If we push too hard, you could get hurt," he said. "I need more time to adjust the joint strength." Before he could continue, a loud bang echoed from the hallway. Outside, they both froze. The door rattled. Someone was trying to break in. Callan grabbed his wrench and rushed to lock the door. Syria pulled herself into the chair, shaking. "Who is it?" She whispered. He didn't answer. He just motioned for silence. A shadow passed under the door's edge, then footsteps moved away. Whoever it was gone. Callan checked the hallway, then returned. Face tense. "They found us," he said. "We have to move again." "Why are they so afraid?" Syria asked. "I just want to walk." Callan looked at her with tired eyes. "It's not just about you anymore," he said. "If one alien walks again, others will want the same, and the people in charge, they want control." That night, they packed everything into boxes, tools, batteries, backup legs. Even the broken prototype, they loaded it onto a small hover cart and left through a service tunnel. Their new hiding place was deeper underground, an old junkyard beneath the city. Here, machines came to die. Old droids, broken engines, scraps of forgotten tech, but to Callan it was treasure. To Syria it was freedom in the weeks that followed. They rebuilt the legs from stronger parts, old power suits, battle bots, and forgotten walking chairs gave their pieces. The knees were reinforced. The feet made wider for balance. Every test brought them closer. Syria could now take 10, 12, even 20 steps. She fell less often. And each time she got back up stronger. But she also noticed something else. Callan was changing. He didn't just fix machines. He taught her how to use tools, how to balance circuits. He even laughed more sometimes. They just sat under the dim junkyard lights, drinking warm tea and talking. Syria asked about Earth, about real rain, oceans, music, and animals. Callan asked about her dreams. She said she wanted to run across the sky gardens barefoot one day. He promised she would, but one night, as they tested the legs again, something flashed on Callan's scanner. Unauthorized drone detected. It read, "They were being watched again. We have to finish soon," Callan said. "I think they're planning something." Syria stood beside him, not shaking, not falling. She looked into the dark with calm eyes, then let them watch, she said. "Because I'm not sitting down ever again." The night was too quiet, even in the junkyard. Where old machines whispered in their sleep, something felt wrong. Callan stood by the workbench. Adjusting the legs for a new test, Syria tightened a screw on her chest support panel. Her fingers, now skilled, steady, she didn't just wear the legs anymore, she owned them. Then the lights flickered. Just for a moment, but long enough to make both of them stop moving. Callan looked at the power core. Still running, still green. Syria spoke. Softly, "Did you hear that?" A faint click. Then another. Not from inside, but outside. From the shadows beyond the junk piles. Callan reached for the scanner. He scanned the perimeter. One heat signal moving slowly, then disappearing. "We're not alone," he said. They powered down the lab and went silent. But when they returned the next morning, the damage had already been done. The main processor was fried. The left knee actuator was missing, and the backup battery had been ripped out. Callan stared at the broken pieces, heart sinking. This wasn't an accident. It was sabotage. Syria stood beside him, her face pale. "Someone doesn't want me to walk," she said. "No," Callan replied, his jaw tight. "They don't want anyone like you to stand." They spent the next 2 days in silence. Rebuilding what was lost, Callan barely slept. His hands covered in grease and cuts, Syria worked harder than ever, even when her arms ached. She kept going, but something had changed in her. Before, she had been walking for herself. Now, she walked for more. One evening, while searching for spare parts, Syria found a broken cleaning drone. It still had a live memory chip. She connected it to their main console, hoping to use the casing. But the drone's camera had saved something, a video file. She opened it and watched her breath caught. A familiar face filled the screen, someone she trusted, someone from the city. It was her old doctor. He was talking to 2 officials. "Handing them a datapad, she's becoming dangerous," he said in the video. "If others see her walk, they'll want the same." Syria stared at the screen, frozen. That doctor had treated her for years. He had told her to accept her fate, to stop hoping. Now he was trying to stop her for good. She showed the footage to Callan. He said nothing at first, just clenched his fists. "Afraid of change," he said at last. "They want control more than progress." Syria didn't cry. She didn't break. She stood up, adjusted the straps on her robotic legs, and said, "Then let's finish what we started." They moved again, this time to an old reactor tower on the edge of the junk field. There were no cameras, no visitors, no connections to the city, only machines, dust, and silence. But that was enough. Day by day, they rebuilt the system. Callan added a new neural sensor, one that responded to thought more quickly. Syria practiced walking blindfolded to improve balance. She trained with weights, jumped short platforms, even ran small laps. Each day, she walked farther. Each night, they scanned for intruders, but no one came, until one day. A knock echoed through the tower, 3 soft taps, then silence. They froze. Syria reached for the wrench. Callan approached the door carefully. He opened it, just a crack. A girl stood outside, not much younger than Syria. With mechanical arms and trembling lips, "I heard what you're doing," she said. "Can you help me too?" Behind her stood 3 more, all with broken limbs, faded hover chairs or missing parts. They had come from the shadows, from forgotten streets, from places where no help had ever reached. Syria looked at them, and for the first time, she saw herself in others. She turned to Callan and nodded. "We're not just fixing legs anymore," she said. "We're building a future." The part ends with Callan drawing new blueprints. Syria helping a young boy learn how to take his first step. Using trial legs, and far above, in a dark room of the city tower, the council watches the growing movement. Their faces are still, their voices cold. "She's becoming a symbol," one of them says. "Then we must break the symbol," another replies. But Syria is not afraid. It is because now she is no longer alone. The alarm didn't make a sound, but Callan saw the red light blinking on the corner screen. It meant one thing: they'd been found. Outside the tower, the sky was still dark, but high above, a shadow moved across the stars. A government drone, silent, watching, scanning inside the tower. Syria helped a young girl test her legs. The child stood for the first time in years. Her metal limbs shook, but she smiled. That smile was quickly replaced with fear when Callan shouted, "Everyone inside now." They sealed the lab doors and powered down every system. No lights, no noise, no signals. The children hid behind broken reactors and crates of wires. Syria looked at Callan. "What do we do?" "We run," he said. "We disappear again." She hated that word. Disappear, but she nodded. The escape plan wasn't ready. The transport pod was still half built, but it would have to be enough. They loaded what they could: tools, leg parts, energy cores, and food packs. Each of the kids wore makeshift limbs, some barely stable. Syria moved to the front, her legs now faster, lighter, sharper than before. I'll lead, she said. If anything happens, I'll draw them away. Callan hesitated. You sure? She didn't answer with words. She just stepped forward, calm. Ready? Not a patient anymore, a protector. They opened the back tunnel and slipped into the deep underground. Rusty pipes, flickering lights, the smell of old oil. It was the city's forgotten spine, and now it was their escape route, but above them. The council had already deployed the hunters' tall, armored enforcers with silent boots and sharp eyes. Not machines, but worse, people who had chosen to stop progress. Because fear was easier than change, they entered the old sector and scanned for movement. There in the tunnels, one said, bring them back. Another replied, or destroy the tech in the tunnel. Callan tapped his wristpad. There's a junction ahead. He whispered, we split 2 groups. I'll take the kids. You lead them through the vent routes. Syria didn't argue. She took 4 of the children and moved left. The others followed Callan. Each step in the dark echoed like thunder in her chest. Then came the noise boots hitting metal behind them. Syria turned. Light from a hunter's torch flooded the tunnel. Run, she said. The kids didn't look back. She stayed behind, just for a moment, to block the path. She used a loose pipe and jammed the entrance, then sprinted after them. Her legs moved like lightning smooth, precise, almost silent. Every step reminded her why they built this. Not for power, not for war, but for freedom. They reached a ladder. Syria lifted the smallest child first. One by one, they climbed into a vent shaft that led to the abandoned hangar. By the time she pulled herself through, her body was shaking, but she didn't stop, not when they were so close. The hangar was empty, but huge broken ships, crates of tools, and dust older than memory. But in the center, Callan's old escape, pod, round, patched, and ugly, but strong. Callan arrived moments later with the second group. They're close, he said. We don't have time. They loaded the children into the pod. Syria looked at him. Are you coming? He shook his head. There's only room for 1 more, he said. You go? No, Syria said firmly. We go together, but the floor shook. The hunters were cutting through the wall now. There was no more time for arguing, so Callan gave her the control pad. You know how to fly it? He said. You trained for this. She stared at him, eyes full of fire and fear. Then she grabbed his wrist, pulled him inside, and hit the launch button. The escape pod roared to life. Engines sputtered, then caught. The roof split open just in time, and they blasted into the sky. Below them, the hangar filled with light as the hunters stormed in. But they were too late. Syria was gone, high above the city. In the cold air, the pod shook, but inside, the children laughed. They weren't just escaping, they were rising. Callan looked at Syria. You stole my line, he said, grinning. What line? She asked. You trained for this? He repeated. She smiled. Guess I'm a fast learner. The part ends as the escape pod disappears into the clouds. Behind them, the city burns with questions. Who was the girl with the robotic legs? Da-da-da-da. And where is she going next? Asterisk, it began with a signal, not a loud broadcast. It's not a public speech, just a soft message, passed from one broken voice to another. She's alive, it said. The girl with the robotic legs lives in the shadows of Syrex 9, where cameras did not reach and laws were only whispered. The broken and forgotten listened. They remembered the girl who walked when no one believed she could. They remembered how she escaped the hunters, and now they began to rise. Syria and Callan had landed far from the capital. In a quiet valley of crystal trees and hidden caves, the escape pod was damaged, but they were safe for now. Around them, the children played on rough ground, their new limbs helping them run, stumble, and rise again. Syria sat by the riverbank, adjusting the settings on a boy's foot actuator. He had fallen earlier, scraped his knee, but came back laughing, watching him. She smiled. This is what it was always about, she whispered. Not fighting, not running, just standing up. But across the sky, another message flew. This one sent by the council. Syria is a danger to peace, it read. Any citizen helping her will be punished. The words were clear. But the people didn't listen, one by one. Outcasts, broken citizens, and quiet rebels found their way to the valley. Some walked, some crawled, some were carried, some wore parts built by Callan, others came empty-handed. But they all came with something the council couldn't stop. Hope Callan turned the cave into a full workshop. With Syria's help, they began building faster, legs, arms, spinal support, even vision lenses for the blind. It was no longer just about walking, it was about giving everyone a second chance. One evening, Syria stood before a crowd of 40 aliens, young and old, strong and weak. Her voice was calm, but each word struck like thunder. They told me I would never walk. She said, they told me to sit down and stay quiet. But I stood up. Now they say I'm dangerous, not because I have weapons, but because I didn't ask for permission. She paused, looking at the faces around her. You don't need permission to be free, she said. Cheers. Echoed across the valley, not wild, just deep, certain. A sound the council would never understand. But the rebellion wasn't just noise, it was action. Syria began teaching. Every day, she trained 5 students to build basic XLMs. She taught them how to balance power with movement, how to protect nerves, how to listen to the body. She wasn't just a patient anymore. She was a builder, a teacher, a leader. Callan watched her with quiet pride. He fixed the system she didn't have time for, but slowly, he stepped back. The movement didn't need one hero. It needed many. Back in the capital, the council was growing afraid. Reports came in daily, more citizens walking with strange limbs. Workshops in the slums making human-inspired tech. One even reported a grandmother racing a courier drone. The council held emergency meetings. We must act, one member said. She is making us look weak. Then let's show them power, said another. Send the enforcers to the valley. But when the enforcers reached the valley, they found nothing. The caves were empty, the ground cold, gone. Syria had moved the rebellion before they arrived. And she would do it again and again, because it was never about fighting. It was about outlasting, outsmarting, about surviving. With strength and kindness that night, deep in a forest outpost, Syria recorded a message. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even loud. My name is Syria, she said. For 10 years, I lived in a chair. Now I walk, not because someone gave me permission, but because someone gave me a chance. You don't need to follow me. But if you want to stand, I'll show you how. The message was shared quietly. No networks, no broadcasts, just link to link, hand to hand, and it burned like fire through the cities. The part ends with a young boy in the outer colony. He has no legs, no voice, but he plays the message on his tablet and smiles, then turns to his mother and whispers, I want to walk, somewhere far away. Syria is building another pair of legs. Because the rebellion doesn't wear armor, it wears courage. The city was silent, not the peaceful kind of silence, but the kind before a storm. Lights blinked across the council tower. Drones hovered over rooftops, scanning the streets. Every screen in the city showed the same warning, unauthorized. Text spreading among citizens, watch for illegal prosthetics, report anyone wearing human-modified limbs, and yet, the streets were not empty. Now from every corner of Syrex 9, people were walking, people who had once rolled, limped, or been carried. Now they stood, and at the front of them walked Syria. Her steps were quiet, but the city felt each one. The robotic legs hummed gently, their silver plates shining under the rising sun. She wore no armor, no mask, no weapons, only truth. Beside her walked Callan, and behind them, hundreds. Children with new feet, elders with reinforced spines, workers with cybernetic hands. They didn't shout. They didn't run. They just moved. Forward, toward the council tower, toward the place where it had all started. Toward the ones who told her to sit down and accept her place inside the tower. Panic spread. Do we shut the gates? Should we send the guards? But the oldest counselor raised a hand. No, he said. Let her in. And so the gates opened. For the first time in years, the council chambers welcomed someone who did not kneel. Syria walked through the tall archways, her every step echoing like thunder on polished stone. She didn't flinch. She didn't bow. She stood in the center of the room and looked each counselor in the eyes. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "I'm here to speak." Silence followed. They let her for 10 years. I was told to wait. She began to hope for a cure, to be patient, to be quiet. I waited, and I watched my world move without me. She touched her chest. Then a human came. He didn't promise miracles. He didn't fix me. He gave me a tool and a choice. She turned, slowly letting the camera drones capture her every word. "What I wear is not rebellion," she said. "It's not danger. It's possibility. You're afraid because I stood up. But I didn't rise alone," she pointed to the crowd outside the chamber doors. They stood too. A counselor stood. His voice was calm but sharp. "Do you mean to replace us with machines?" Syria shook her head. "No," she said. "I came to remind you what power is. Not control, not silence, but movement." She stepped forward one slow, graceful stride. "I'm not asking for your permission. I'm showing you the future." Another voice rose, softer this time. "And what if we say no?" Syria looked at them, and for the first time in her life she didn't feel small. She didn't feel broken. She felt whole. "Then we'll keep walking," she said, "and one day we'll walk past you." The chamber fell quiet. No commands were given. No guards moved. Only the sound of her steps as she walked back out, taller than ever before. Outside, the people waited when they saw her emerge. Standing proud and unshaken, they didn't cheer, they stood. Some took off their hover supports. Others switched on their own new limbs. Together, they walked not to fight, but to exist, to live, to move, to be seen. Later that night, Callan found Syria sitting under a tree. The city lights glowed far in the distance. He sat beside her, quiet. "You did it," he said. She smiled. "We did," she replied. He reached into his coat and pulled out something small, a new chip slim. "Glowing, powerful, for the next version of the legs," he said. "Smaller, faster." Syria took it and stared at it in her hand. Then she looked at him. "No," she said. "This one's not for me." He raised an eyebrow. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "It's for the next girl." The story ends with Syria standing again, this time not to prove anything, not to escape, but simply because she can. She walks across the hilltop under the stars, one step after another, each one echoing into the future.